Now, around the time of the release of Daredevil Season 2, I was talking to one of my friends about the show, and we ultimately came to the conclusion that Season 1 tells a better story, but Season 2 is more entertaining. And this time around, I can say that I do agree with that statement, but to an extent. Mainly because Season 2 has a lot of problems around about the back half of the season. Now, hopefully my analysis for Season 2 won't be as long as it was for Season 1. And thankfully, the story for Season 2 isn't a 13-hour movie, but instead it's 4 separate chunks. So I'm pretty sure it'll be easier for me to talk about and analyze. And so, let's not waste any time. Let's just get straight into this. Right from the get-go, the opening scene to Season 2 just feels so much more comic book inspired. I mean, it's literally Matt dressed in the Daredevil costume, taking out a group of thugs in the middle of the night. It's just so great. It also sets up a running theme established from the comics that Daredevil is sort of like a drug for Matt, and that it's this thing that he constantly needs in his life because it just gives him this big high. And so it's nice that the show decided to include that little theme from the comics. But it also sets up a good personal conflict between Matt and Foggy, and for the most part, it's handled pretty organically. And it's way better than shows like Flash and Arrow where they force drama down your throat every single time. It's so annoying. But luckily the show doesn't do that. Now, the opening to Season 2 also does a really good job at establishing the force of nature that is the Punisher this season. I mean, we see the crime scene that he commits, and how everyone always says that it was done by a paramilitary group, but then we discover that it's just one guy. It's just really cool because it just enforces just how powerful the Punisher really is. And the scene in the hospital just really emphasizes that. I mean, he's just walking in this very Terminator-esque way, like shooting point blank at people. It's great. And it also helps at establishing him as one of Matt's big bads because, I mean, he literally shoots him point blank in the head. I mean, that's a great way to set up your antagonist for the season. And the first few episodes of the season really do a good job at establishing just how kind of badass Foggy is. I mean, he literally goes from rooftop to rooftop looking for Matt's unconscious body. And then when he finds him, he manages to drag him all the way back to his apartment without anybody seeing him in the costume. Like, damn, Foggy is a badass. Now, I can understand why some people wouldn't like the fact that they reopened old wounds between Matt and Foggy about Foggy's attitude of him being Daredevil, but for me, it works okay, mainly because Foggy's just scared for his friend. I mean, he understands what Daredevil does, and he understands that he's needed, and he's not questioning that. He's just scared that his friend was so careless that he got himself shot in the head. Now, in regards to Matt's concussion, I love what they did with it from a filmmaking standpoint. The part where the glass falls off the table and shatters and there's no sound is really good. It really just puts you inside Matt's headspace. And although I liked it stylistically, I think it is a bit of a plot device, and it's mainly used just so we can get Daredevil and Punisher on that rooftop in episode 3. But I think I'll let that slide, mainly because it helps to enforce the idea that Matt just won't ease up his Daredevil and like take a break. Now, episode 2 also does a really good job at showing us the wonderful personality of the District Attorney, Reyes. And man, she has such a great personality. But episode 2 also really starts to establish the morality of the Punisher. Side note, I loved how when the DA's assistant tells everyone the codename for the Punisher, everyone just looks around kind of going, yeah, that's a pretty badass codename. I dig it. It's pretty cool. But as I was saying, the scene where Punisher goes to buy the police scanner from that shady business guy, you can already just see in that scene the morality of the Punisher. And it's up to the point where the guy tries to sell him child pornography, where you just see Frank's face just stop, and you can just tell what he's thinking in the back of his mind. I mean, the fact that the girl in the video was 12, you could just tell in the back of Frank's mind he was just thinking, that's the same age as my dead daughter. What a scumbag. And the way he just like turns over the clothes sign and then picks up the baseball bat and kills him. Oh, I love the Punisher. But not only that, the Punisher's also an animal lover. I mean, he saves the kitchen Irish's dog and, you know, treats its wounds and feeds it and kind of treats it as his own pet. Who knew that Frank Castle was an animal lover? But I mean, you just have to admire the writing of the show. Frank has barely had 5 lines of dialogue at this point in the show, and yet he's already just as complex as Matt and Wilson Fisk. I love that. And now we get to episode 3, New York's Finest, where we have Daredevil chained up onto the roof and he and Punisher start to debate some morals and philosophy. And I've got to say, this is probably just my favourite episode. The way Charlie Cox and John Bernthal play off each other is just... mwah. The episode does a really good job, not just at displaying the differences between the two men, but also the similarities. Both were born and raised in New York. Both were Catholic. And yet it's the differences that define these men. Matt sticks to his Catholic beliefs and the idea that life is precious, and that everyone should be given a chance for redemption and forgiveness. But the Punisher believes that there is no good in the filth that he puts down. And the way John Bernthal just delivers some of these lines are just absolutely amazing.
I think there's no good in the filth that I put down, that's what I think.
And how do you know?
I just know. Look around, Red. This city, it stinks. It's a sewer. It stinks and it smells like shit, and I can't get the stink out of my nose. I think that this world, it needs men that are willing to make the hard call. That's what I think. I think you and me are the same. We're the same. You know it. Only I do the one thing that you can't. You hit them and they get back up. I hit them and they stay down.
Then there's that really cool subplot where Foggy, in search for Matt, meets up with Claire, and then he manages to stop a fight in the middle of a hospital between two gangs just by using his extensive vocabulary as a lawyer. Like, as I said before, Foggy is awesome. And then the episode ends with yet another spectacular hallway fight. And although I prefer the aesthetics of the season 1 hallway fight, the season 2 hallway fight is just so much more brutal. I mean, you've got Daredevil threatening people with empty guns, he's whipping them with chains, he's bashing people's heads in with a door, it's just awesome. But despite that, I have two very big questions about this episode. One, how the hell did Punisher manage to drag Daredevil all the way to the top of that rooftop, which was several blocks away from their initial starting point? And two, where the hell did the Punisher go at the end of the episode? Last we saw of him, he was unconscious in the lift. And then you'd expect by episode 4 he'd be in police custody, right? Well, no, he just disappears. Like, where did he go? Now, episode 4, Penny and Dime, just does a really good job at bookending this section of the story. You've got the Punisher being captured and tortured by the Irish. You've got Karen Page breaking into Frank Castle's house and learning more about his past. You've got Daredevil with a brand spanking new and awesome helmet capturing and arresting the Punisher. And you've got Matt and Karen getting together. Now, Finn Cooley was just a really cool antagonist for this episode. Maybe it's just the Irish accent that makes him very distinct, but I thought he just had so much presence. I mean, he was literally the one person who made the Punisher feel vulnerable. And also, our introductory scene to him is him stabbing a guy straight through the eye. Also, this episode gives birth to the Punisher Berserker Roar, which I just love because it really just gets you in the moment and you kind of just go, yeah, Punisher! But also, the look of disgust on Frank's face when he finds out that Finn Cooley only cares about his money, even though his son just died, is just really great character stuff. Because in the back of his mind, he's just judging him so much by thinking, you are a terrible father. If my kid just died, I would not care about my money at all. Which is why I love Bernthal's Punisher just so much. But also, Daredevil saving the Punisher just felt so comic booky. I mean, Daredevil's literally getting his batons and like bouncing it off walls and stuff. It just feels so Daredevil. And in case I didn't mention it before, Frank Castle, I'd like to give you a very, very personal message. Thank you for blowing up that ugly rust bucket that was on Daredevil's head at the beginning of the season, because it ultimately gives us the far superior and just awesome looking Daredevil Season 2 helmet. I just love that helmet so much because it just makes Charlie Cox look even more like Daredevil than he already does. I love it. Now, the graveyard scene between Punisher and Daredevil is just heart-wrenching. It's probably the saddest thing in any live-action Marvel property, and John Bernthal just knocks it out of the park. I mean, that story he tells about reuniting with his daughter for the first time after coming back from war, it's so sad that even Daredevil sheds a tear. But then the scene continues, and what happens next is just chill-inducing. So you've got Brett arriving on the scene, arresting the Punisher, and then he's about to arrest Daredevil, but then Daredevil tells him no, he needs to take the credit, simply because he needs to prove that vigilante justice is not the law. And so with that, Brett lets him go, and he says the line, I don't know what you are, but you certainly aren't him. And then we get that amazing panning shot where it goes from the ambulance and it pans all the way up to the top of the church, and it recreates one of the best Daredevil covers I've ever seen. It's so good! Now, speaking of churches, I've got a massive complaint about Season 2. Where are my conversations between Matt and Father Lantom? We get one token scene between Matt and Father Lantom. I'm sorry, no, that doesn't cut it. Where are my deep and philosophical scenes between those two? I mean, the lack of these scenes bogged down Season 2 more than the hand stuff did. Like, where are these scenes? But I digress. The arc then wraps up with Matt and Karen getting together, and I swear to God, this show is just trying to improve upon the Ben Affleck movie, because, I mean, they recreated the rain scene. I mean, literally, the show is just trying to show off. But their kiss is well earned, and their relationship is well earned. It's just that I don't like how they break up, but I'll get onto that later on. But in true comic book fashion, this story arc then ends and sets up the next one, as we get our first introduction to Elodie Young as Elektra. So this arc starts us off with our introduction to Elektra, and I like Elodie Young's Elektra quite a bit, especially because she just feels more comic book, and she's so much better than the Jennifer Garner interpretation that we saw in the Ben Affleck movie. The show does a really good job in showing her manipulation skills. She does so many things to Matt that you kind of just realize that she really just isn't good for him. She's a really bad influence. I mean, back in their college days, she stopped him from going to classes, she started making him break into places, she even tries to make him kill a man. Even though it was the man who killed his father, she still tried to make him kill a man. And what makes that even worse is that it looked like she was getting turned on by him repeatedly punching Roscoe Sweeney in the face. I mean, Elektra definitely has a screw loose. And I love how the show kind of acknowledges that, because in The Man Without Fear, Elektra is literally unhinged. She hears voices in her head. I mean, there's a scene in Daredevil, The Man Without Fear, where she attracts a group of guys into an alleyway, and then she just murders them brutally for the fun of it. Elektra is a really cool but messed up character. This section of the story also gives birth to Karen Page becoming a reporter, something that goes against her comic book counterpart, but happens so organically that I don't even care. It's really well done. Because I mean, from the get-go, she feels like something is off with Frank's case, and as this unfolds, it gets her to get Matt and Foggy to represent the Punisher in the trial of the Punisher. In terms of Matt and Karen's relationship, their first date is really well done. I like how neither of them are comfortable at eating at this fancy restaurant, and instead they opt out and go to this cheap curry house. It's really cool stuff. Also, similarly to Fisk, Matt knows nothing about wine, and I find that really interesting. Now, one of my favorite scenes happens right after this date. After Matt and Karen have their intense kissing session, Matt then just starts to walk down the street. He's all euphoric, and then suddenly a guy walks into him. And then a junkie asks him for a fix. And then you hear the police sirens, and you see the sirens flash across his face. And that scene right there just sums up the plight of Daredevil. It's just great filmmaking. Now, Karen can kind of be seen as a plot device this season, and I say that mainly because she's really just there to show the human side to Frank Castle. I mean, the scene with her and Frank in the hospital room where they reminisce about Frank's old house, it shows a vulnerability to Frank that nobody else has seen apart from Daredevil. Now, to me, for some weird reason, one of the standout episodes is episode 6, aka the one where Daredevil and Elektra go to this party to infiltrate and steal the Roxxon Ledger, and I just really enjoyed it. It had good jazz, it felt very Mission Impossible-like, and you got to see Matt and Elektra reconnecting. Also, you can really tell that Matt is enjoying himself when he's around Elektra, because initially their partnership was very reluctant and he didn't want to be anywhere near her, but then he starts to get actually interested in what the Japanese is up to, and also his antics with Elektra become more of a priority to him than the trial of the Punisher. And this is basically the crux to Matt's arc this season. He tries and fails to be both Matt Murdock and Daredevil. And by the end of the season, he starts veering off to the Daredevil side because he just isn't interested in being Matt Murdock anymore. Now, in regards to the trial of the Punisher, the trial itself is pretty interesting. You've got the public's divided opinion. Some think he's a hero and others think he's a monster. But not only that, it also gives Foggy a chance to shine, to realize that he doesn't need Matt to be an efficient and good lawyer. In fact, he's a pretty good one. And also, it just helps to emphasize my point that Foggy this season is a badass. Now, Foggy's anger to Matt is well justified. I mean, 1, he didn't even want to take the case, and 2, Matt isn't doing any of the work. He's just showing up late and messing everything up. Then we get the scene where Punisher takes the stand. And my god, does Bernthal 1 just ham it up, but also just make it super enjoyable. The way he depicts a crazy Frank Castle is great, like the eye twitch he does is just fantastic. Plus, you've got the iconic,
You call me the Punisher, ain't that right? The big bad Punisher. Here I am! You want it?
Remove the witness.
I am the Punisher! I'm right here! You want it, I'll give it to you! And anybody who came here today, hear me whine, hear me beg, please just kiss my ass!
But then I also love how he does it for a reason. It's the fact that he throws away the trial because someone approached him. But I'll come back to that. Okay, so Matt having that speech about vigilantism just comes the heck out of nowhere, and I don't actually understand how it's relevant to questioning the Punisher. Don't get me wrong, it's a well-delivered and well-written speech, and in no way, shape or form is that Matt goading the Punisher into telling his story about his family. In fact, when you think about it, when Matt Murdock isn't on point, he kind of sucks as a lawyer, like big time. But to me, the worst part of this entire section of the story arc is how Karen and Matt break up, because, I cringe at it every time. It's just so dumb. So Karen goes over to Matt's house to find Stick there. And then in the other room, Elektra is sick in bed recovering from a knife wound she got, and Daredevil is just reassuring her. And yet Karen somehow comes to the conclusion that Matt is cheating on her. Like, what? Matt is fully dressed, he's not even in the bed, and Elektra looks ill. It totally isn't what Karen thinks it is because it looks nothing like Matt cheating on her. It's just, so stupid, I hate it. But luckily the show manages to wash that awful taste out of my mouth as we find out as soon as Punisher enters the prison, we realize that the person who told him to throw away the case was none other than the Kingpin. Like, when I saw that the first time, I was speechless. In my brain, I just thought, it's the Kingpin! Seeing the Kingpin again was just truly the highlight of Season 2. You can tell that prison has changed him, but he's not completely unrecognizable from his Season 1 counterpart. I mean, some evidence for that is when he won't let go of Vanessa's cufflinks, like he really holds it on the palm of his hand before he finally tips it over. But seeing the Punisher and Wilson Fisk share screen time together is just amazing. Bernthal and D'Onofrio just chew up the scenery when they're together. And the fact that Wilson Fisk turns the Punisher into his own lapdog, the freaking Punisher, really just emphasizes how big of a threat Wilson Fisk is. I mean, he turned the Punisher, into his own personal hitman just to take control of the prison. I love Wilson Fisk. He is just amazing. But easily the highlight of the season has to be when Matt visits Wilson Fisk. Mainly because ultimately this is Matt's biggest mistake of the entire season, and this will ultimately lead to his undoing in Season 3. But I mean, just the scene itself is electric. When Matt sits down at that table and is trying to suppress his anger at Fisk, it's just so well performed by Cox, and that sudden burst of rage when he slams the table and goes, "That's bullshit," is just fantastic. But as soon as Matt plays the Vanessa card, D'Onofrio just owns the scene. Keep kicking him! Keep kicking him! The scene itself does a really good job in putting you in Matt's shoes. The way Kingpin is threatening him, the amount of just anger and malice and hatred in his voice is just chilling, and it's terrifying. But not only that, there's just some fantastic line deliveries in this scene.
Yes, the son of a boxer. Yes, ask my lawyer, he'll deny it. Ask the guards, they'll deny it. Ask the inmates here. They'll cut their tongues out before they talk. I will dismantle the lives of the two amateurs that put me in here. No, I did it. The two of you took the laurels. You'll both take the blame. I'll chop both the heads off of that snake, and I'll spend more than $6 on postage to bring you down. Yes, the son of a boxer. Yes, the son of a boxer.
I love how our final scene with Fisk is just him putting the pieces together that Matt Murdock is Daredevil. Although, I am surprised that it took him a bit longer than I would have suspected. I mean, literally, Matt is using the Daredevil voice in that scene.
No, I put you here, not Nelson. No, I did it.
I mean, how did he not put that together at that moment in time? But I just love how Fisk is ultimately turning into the born-again Wilson Fisk. I mean, evidence for that is when he says that he'll spend more than $6 to bring down Nelson and Murdock, which is basically what the Kingpin did in Born Again, where he spent almost all of his resources trying to kill and take down Matt Murdock. It's just, I'm so excited for Season 3. Now, I haven't mentioned a lot of stuff with the Hand, mainly because I just wanted to talk about it all in this section here, because ultimately, the Hand is the weakest part of this season. Mainly just because everything in this season just gets contradicted by Defenders, and even the season itself starts contradicting itself. So, by the end of the season, we realize that Elektra is a Black Sky. And we have no idea what a Black Sky actually is, because one moment it said that it's a weapon, but in Season 1 we were told that it was just this inhumane thing, and in Season 1 it was setting it up for it to be a host body for the demon that the Hand worships, but in Season 2 it just says the Black Sky is a weapon. And also the fact that Elektra was the Black Sky just also makes the Hand look super incompetent. I mean, they've had several opportunities to capture her, and yet they just didn't. And you could argue that that's because they didn't know she was the Black Sky, but all of a sudden when Matt, Stick, and Elektra are in that room and Nobu walks in, he suddenly goes, "Of course, you're the Black Sky." So you're telling me that they knew she was the Black Sky from the beginning? Why didn't they just capture her when she was weak from that stab wound? But also, the Hand has been draining blood from people and filling it into this sarcophagus. And they say that this sarcophagus is awakening. But then by the end of the season, Elektra is put in it and it's meant to resurrect her. But initially, I was led to believe that something was already being born in the sarcophagus. Why is the show contradicting itself? And look, to be honest, the Hand in this season is really just there so we can get cool ninja fights. But even the ninja fights aren't that great. Don't get me wrong, the fight choreography wasn't as terrible as it was in Iron Fist Season 1, but it still wasn't that good. As soon as you get a whole bunch of ninjas, the choreography kind of slacks a little bit, mainly because there's so many, and also they don't know what to do when it's swords against fists. Because you just see the Hand soldiers just like holding their swords, but they don't do anything with them. But not only that, in the final fight, the amount of ninjas disappearing just really jarred me. Because they have these establishing shots of ninjas just filling the roof. But then in the next scene, there's like 10 ninjas, when realistically they showed like 300. And what's even worse is that during the final fight, there's just 4 ninjas standing there. Why aren't they doing anything? But I'll tell you what. There are some things that I did like about the Hand this season. One, they actually dressed like ninjas, unlike in Iron Fist and Defenders where they're just goons dressed in leather jackets. Like, Come on, the Hand are ninjas, not generic Hollywood goons. And 2, just Nobu. I like Nobu a lot, and I was kind of sad to see Nobu die, especially when we get to Defenders when they replace him with this other Japanese guy. Just, no man, Nobu was so cool. Because ultimately, Nobu was kind of the antithesis to Daredevil. Even though Matt is geared up in his body armor, he still struggles to fight against Nobu. The only reason why he actually wins the final fight against Nobu is because he's just so pissed off that if Matt went and crossed the line, he could become unstoppable. And that scene where Matt kills Nobu is just epic. I mean, the music just intensifies. John Pantania's score this season was just amazing. He reorchestrates already established motifs and just makes them fantastic and just chill-inducing. You've also got the Punisher taking out the Hand as Matt's walking towards Nobu, and that just got me itching for more Daredevil and Punisher team-up, especially since Punisher was like fully dressed in costume, leather trench coat, Punisher skull, amazing quiff. Yes, give me more Punisher and Daredevil. And then you've got Matt killing Nobu. Now, the reason why I say that is because it ultimately solidified that the Punisher sort of won the argument. Daredevil had his one bad day, the death of Elektra, which then led to him killing Nobu. And although Nobu didn't actually die, Matt's intent was clear. He wanted to kill Nobu. And so because of that, the Punisher won the argument. I also like how he killed him with his cabled billy club, simply just because he had his billy club. Like, that's cool. Now, let me make this clear. I didn't hate everything from the back half. Everything that didn't concern the Hand was really good. The origin of the Punisher, really good. Karen becoming a reporter, really good. Nelson and Murdoch deteriorating and breaking off, really good stuff. The death of Elektra, pretty good. Matt telling Karen he's Daredevil, really, really good. I really liked Matt's character arc this season, mainly because there was 2 sources of conflicts he had to deal with. One, he was trying not to kill, and that gets put to the test when the Punisher gets involved. And in fact, Matt pretty much crosses the line and considers crossing the line when he realizes that men like Wilson Fisk, even when apprehended by the law, can still remain in power. And 2, he's trying really hard not to fall into Stick's philosophy of cutting away all human ties. And by the end of the season, he pretty much does. Nelson and Murdoch is kaput, he pretty much breaks up with Karen, and he's willing to let Matt Murdock die completely. It's only when his one last tie, Elektra, dies, does Matt then realize that he's gone too far and he actually needs his human ties. That's what makes him Matt Murdock. And ultimately, this is what leads him to reveal to Karen that he's Daredevil, because he's trying to regain back his human ties. I also find it really interesting how the Punisher sort of follows Stick's philosophy of cutting away all ties to humanity. It would have been really interesting in having the 2 of them sit together in a room, because I think they would have worked off each other really, really well. Now, I did like Elodie Young's version of Elektra. In fact, I felt like she really captured the essence of comic book Elektra. Her twisted and yet sadistic nature was just spot on. Although I felt like her character was certainly missing some depth. Now, in the show, we're told that she's a disciple of Stick, and the reason why Stick gave her away to an ambassador was simply because she was the Black Sky and she was becoming uncontrollable. And I feel like if we got to actually see Elektra with her ambassador father, and then see her father get killed, and then that turns her onto her path of assassination, that would have been really good. But unfortunately, we don't get an explanation as to why she became an assassin. We're just told that she was an assassin off screen. I would have preferred it if we saw Elektra see her father die, and then have her turn and become the living weapon. The foreshadowing to her being with Stick was really well done. I mean, she literally states that German beer tastes like piss, exactly like Stick did in season 1. Now, I love her relationship with Matt. Simply put, they both love each other, but they also keep trying to change each other, and ultimately that's why they don't belong together. I quite love the hypocrisy of Matt's statement. He keeps saying that the Hand doesn't get to tell Elektra who she is, yet Matt is the one telling her that she can be good. It adds this sort of tragic tone to their relationship, and I just love that. Like I've said about 5 times in this video now, Season 2 just turns Foggy into a badass. He becomes more confident, he realizes that he doesn't need Matt to be a good lawyer, and that he loves his job. But I will say, seeing Nelson and Murdoch fall apart was really sad to see. Now, Karen becoming a reporter, like I said before, happens so organically that you don't even question it, because her whole character is about discovering the truth. And not only that, her arc is so intertwined with Ellison that she basically helps redeem him from Season 1. Because Ellison in Season 1, whenever he was talking to Ben, was unsupportive, uncaring, and just wanted to sell papers. But this time around, when he talks to Karen, he's supportive, he encourages her, and he just wants her to tell the truth. In conclusion, Daredevil Season 2 isn't as well written as Season 1. In fact, the stuff with the hand really does bog down the season. But other than that, it's still a really good season of television. You've got fantastic performances, great characters, pretty solid action, and the costume. The new Daredevil helmet just helps to elevate that costume so much. I love it. But also, the writing of the season is leagues better than other superhero TV shows at the moment. It's better than Jessica Jones, it's better than Iron Fist, and it's better than Flash and Arrow. Plus, that tease for Season 3 is just too good not to get excited for. I can't wait for October 19th. I am so ready to let the devil out. Hey, thank you guys for watching. If you liked the video, leave me a comment down below. Like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Hit the notification bell to stay notified. My social media links are down in the description, so if you give them a look and a follow, that'd be real nice. And until we meet again, I'll see you guys next time.